Alrighty, we are now recording. At this time, feel free to turn off your camera so we can preserve bandwidth, so we can make it through this presentation and professional development series today. This is our third session, so we are just rolling on. On behalf of the 21st Century team, we just have a few updates as we roll into December. Just as a reminder, um, program attendance update forms have been uploaded into 21DC. This is under related documents, and this is for your second and third installment. So just as a reminder, for your second installment, if you have met 50% of your enrollment goal and have students regularly attending at 45 plus hours, you can go ahead and submit for your second installment now. You don't have to wait. And then the deadline for your third installment is Friday, April 17th. And that is the drop dead deadline to submit for your third installment. And at that time, if you do not meet that deadline, you may have to take a reduction or right size for your program. So please don't miss that deadline. We'll send another update into our listserv and just remind everyone to get those in. Another update that we have, reminder that 21DC data is due by December 31st. So if you have not entered data into 21DC at this point, please make sure it's entered by December 31st and contact your program administrator if you need any technical assistance. By now, if you haven't entered data into 21DC, you should have reached out to your program administrator by now. And lastly, monitoring letters. So if you are scheduled for a monitoring, whether it be modified or full monitoring in the spring, be on the lookout for your monitoring letter. This is going to be being sent now for January monitorings. And then you want to look into Title I Crate to obtain a copy of this letter, this notification letter. Reminder that all data and documentation is now uploaded, into Title I Crate. So we don't share the Google Drive anymore. That's for your own record keeping purposes and kind of get organized. But data is uploaded, documentation is uploaded into Title I Crate to prepare for upcoming monitoring. So as always, if you do have questions about your monitoring or what to prepare for, just go ahead and reach out to your program administrator and get connected. So we'll hand it over a little early today to our friends over at Intech. Again, this is part of our professional development series, continuing making a difference, connecting the what to how. So we'll turn it over to our friends at Intech. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the chat and we will address it at the conclusion of our meeting today. All right, Intech, take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, welcome everyone. Welcome back to our summer learning series. So in October, I was with you all talking about how to identify members to join your program team. Last month in November, you focused heavily on those needs assessments, collecting the different levels of data, and hopefully turning those into need assessments, because we will address that today. And speaking of today, we are going to start our two-part series on logic models. So we are slowly making our way through the summer learning of excellence design. And so before we jump into all of the great things that we have to share with you all today, but also a couple of tools that have been developed to support you. Again, my name is Shanika Peck. I was with you in October. I'm one of the senior TA liaisons. I'm happy to join you all today to start the logic model development. For those of you who are unfamiliar with developing a logic model, I must say it is an extremely useful tool when it comes to anything programming related, right? This will definitely help you design intentional activities and overall intentional programming. It also helps support with that continuous improvement process. So we'll get into the details of that shortly. I'm joined today by my colleague, Hillary. I'll let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Shanika. I'm Hillary Jones. I'm one of the senior TA liaisons with the NTAC. And I also think it's a very helpful tool when trying to figure out how all the moving pieces fit together and how to make sure that you're achieving all your programmatic goals, but also all of the requirements that your state has for you. And so it can be really helpful in organizing all of that information in one place.
Awesome. So back to our graphic, this is definitely something that you've seen before, right? Pathways to summer excellence. Like I said before, in October, we focused on that first area, that programming. We talked about who to invite, who to have at the table to help you make summer programming real, right? So anyone from instructional teams to operation teams to help you with the schedules, the logistics, transportation, buses, all the way to your families being a part of the team and that conversation. In November, like I mentioned before, you all were focused on needs assessments, right? You all talked about the different levels of data to collect to inform your needs assessment. You also talked about how to take that data and form it into the needs assessment you'll need to eventually inform how you move forward with your summer programming. Right. So that means we are in the next area, like I mentioned before, the logic model. And again, it is a two-part session. So today we'll work our way through 2 to 3 parts of the logic model using our tool. Some of you may have seen this tool in previous sessions. We'll be using this tool throughout the entire session. And we're hoping that you'll be able to have the skills and knowledge you need to start the logic model for your program. So speaking of needs assessments, right? Your last session with us, you walked away with some homework. Did you bring your homework? Did you do your homework? I actually want to take some time to just check in with everyone before we dive into our beautiful logic models. And just, check in, see where you are. Were you able to identify those different levels of data that you all discussed in the last session? What were you able to do if you were able to collect that data, right? Did some of you uh, uh, figure out how to put those needs assessments or needs statements together? I know in the last session you talked about that good old equation to put them all together, right? Were you able to identify any common concerns, pair it with data, and form your needs statement? If you were able to do so, definitely let us know in the chat. Again, this is our touch point for your homework, right? Have you identified and collected data, right? Whether it's community level, school level, student level. We'll also talk about student voice and family voice today. So we're curious to hear from you all. Do you have any crafted needs statements? And again, you can let us know in the chat as we move forward. Those needs, I need you all to keep that at the top of mind as we practice filling out this logic model. We're putting these different parts together, but essentially your logic model will be using your needs statements. So if you weren't able to collect any data just yet, definitely do that. You'll definitely need that so that you can align your outcomes and the activities, your inputs and outputs to make sure your program is successful. Awesome. So some of you have conducted some surveys, student, staff, and family surveys. Awesome, right? from my experience at this point of the year, some students are experiencing survey fatigue, right? If they've been a part of a number of programming or a number of activities, which is fine, right? There's different ways we can collect data as well. I've seen programs host very small focus groups for those who do well with just verbalizing feedback and sharing their experiences. This is a great way to bring in family voice as well. And so we'll talk a little bit more about family engagement and how we can bring family voice into our logic model as well. So it's good to see that some of you've already sent out some surveys. Great, Pam shared. We have started asking families to join a focus group after the holidays. Woo woo! Yay! And if you're able to do this now, maybe before the holidays, maybe you can turn this into a family engagement piece, right? We definitely want to make sure our youth and family aware that their voice matter in our programs. We also want to share with them how we plan to use their voice in the development of our summer programs. So that is great. Some of you are meeting with school districts. Woo! Getting school day involved is so important. That will definitely give you that school level data that you need, right? Hopefully teachers are also there to give you more information or specific details around what areas or skills youth are lacking in and your program can help to address.
You know, Shanika, if there's somebody in this room who goes, I know I need to be doing that and I just can't get there, don't forget this is the job to do not by yourself, but with your program team, right? Involve them, give them an assignment. They agreed to be part of it. Start with that data collection point if you didn't do that. Like it's step by step. And some of you are taking some great steps, right? Collecting clubs, school staff, student and family data. That's the first part before you can begin writing those needs statements. So you're well on your way. Keep going.
Awesome. And so more folks are dropping what they're doing in the chat. If you're not in a place where you've started, this is a great place for you to get some ideas and start making your way to identifying and collecting that data you need to inform your needs statements. All right, thank you. Kudos to everyone that were able to share. Hopefully this was helpful to everyone else who may not be in a place where you are able to collect or identify data. So we'll keep the ball rolling. For this session, we will use some example needs assessment statements. We'll also have some example data just to help us practice putting together our logic model. Okay, so hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll be able to identify those needs and outcomes again for your logic model. So again, if you're not in that place, you'll still be able to practice these things. We'll also talk about our theory of action, which will be the third piece. Once we get past the need statements, identifying the outcomes, we'll make our way to the theory of action. And then we'll talk about how we can use our logic model to support continuous improvement. All right, so let's take a look at that tool. Today we are exploring this tool. It's a tool that was developed by 21st CCLC NTech. It's part of our summer planning series. And so this is what we'll be using for the next two sessions. Like I mentioned before, it's a two-part session. Some of you, again, may be familiar with this tool from previous webinars, right? If you've gotten a chance to take a look at the site, it's definitely there as well. So what we'll do today, we'll fill out different parts of this logic model together so that once you are ready, you can do this on your own. Now, why, right? Well, that is the biggest question. Why are we creating a logic model? Now, some of you have already kept this in mind. Logic models are extremely important because not only does it help you with beginning the planning or designing process of your program, it also helps you to flesh out the purpose of your program and making sure that your activities that you're identifying is in alignment with any of the needs that you are able to identify through data, right? I like to use my logic model to assess or monitor the implementation of programming, right? With our logic model, we're able to have clear objectives that our program is trying to achieve, and we're making sure that our outcomes are indeed evidence-based, right? So again, this helps with your continuous improvement process. It also helps to ensure that your program is strong and evidence-based. You have very specific and intentional activities planned. It's tied to the need. You have outcomes also in alignment to those needs, because eventually, by the end of your program, you have a goal, right? Hopefully, if all goes well and we've done enough preparation, we'll be getting closer and closer to ensuring that that need no longer exists. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind, right? Logic models may be a heavier lift in the beginning, but not if you have a solid program team, because again, you are not doing this alone. So today we are going to fill out a couple of the parts. One of those parts will be the needs column, right? So we'll first start with the needs, and this is why I said it's really important to think about what you were able to accomplish with your homework. This is where we'll start with our logic model, right? So we'll fill in those need statements first. Now, like I mentioned before, we will have some examples, but it's really important for you to think about what you have already collected for your program, right? So to refresh our memories around developing a need statement, we know that it includes two things, right? A common concern, and that common concern is supported by data from a number of levels, right? Community, school, student level data. You can also tie in student voice and family voice data, right? So here is an example. Our common concern is our fifth grade students are struggling with literacy, right? And we were able to pull some data to support this concern. We noticed that the data indicated that 30% of students did not meet fifth grade standards on the state assessment. The ELA department from the meeting that you had with your district indicated that understanding the main idea is the biggest challenge for our youth. And so you put together that common concern and data, and you put together a beautiful need statement like this, right? Students need to develop reading comprehension skills to identify the main idea in a nonfiction text, right? So we're being very specific about this need, but you also want to keep in mind what you will need to do to address those needs, right? So we're going to take it easy though. We're going to slow down a little bit. So that is our need statement. Now, where does that belong on our logic model? Right in that needs column. So again, we're pulling over the data that we've been collecting and using those different needs statements in that column. So what we'll do together is take a look at this example here. This is a piece of data that we were able to identify. So here's another example, right? 30% of fourth grade students did not meet grade level standards on the state assessment. Can you come up with a need statement? And for the sake of it, let's say we're still focused on literacy, right? So we're talking about the literacy standards for fourth grade. Can you come up with a need statement? And again, our need statement hopefully will allow us to address the gap that we're able to identify. Some of you may also think about the data that you were able to collect. Definitely share your idea in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. what could be the struggle with our fourth grade students?
Shanika, I'm popping back up the formula for those who need to see it again, right? It's the common concern plus the data is what we pull together to create a needs statement. So now I'm going to go back to the data that we were looking at. Take a swing at it. This is your place to test it because you're going to have to go back and write your own. This is your chance to try and see if you understand it.
Now, while you all are typing away in the chat to share your response, I'm going to share some of my experience with fourth grade, right? And given the example data that we had before, a lot of the comprehension issues tend to stem around certain text, right? My fourth graders loved Diary of a Wimpy Kid, right? Those types of lit books and whatnot. But when it came to nonfiction texts, that's where a lot of the struggle seemed to happen, right? So think about your experience with your youth, right? What are some common concerns or areas that you've seen or heard from your school day partners or heard from youth as they complete a homework hour in your program? Some of you may have some tutoring sessions happening, right? What are some common concerns that you can try out here to add to our data, and then eventually we'll come up with a need statement. Like I said before, we have a ton of examples. So if you're still unsure, here's an example of a needs statement. Now, using the data that we have here, right, 30% of fourth grade students did not meet grade level standards on the state assessment. We've come up with the need statement. Students need to develop reading comprehension skills to identify the main idea in a nonfiction text. So, of course, what we see here is the data. We could have pulled some common concerns from the focus groups that we've had or the meetings that we've had with districts and kind of pull on those very specific things that we can incorporate in our need statement. Let's see what you all were able to share or pull together. It says state level standards, so I'm assuming also math. Just thank you, right? This may not be an issue with literacy per se, right? Math may also be involved. Often there isn't a solid grasp of number sense that enables them to move forward into more abstract thinking in the upper elementary grades. Absolutely. Now, we also must keep in mind if there are some reading comprehension issues that also may impact math, because what is also included in those math assessments? Word problems, right? When we think about those abstract thinking, it may be an issue with understanding or identifying context clues, right? Good one. Someone else shared, student need assistance with understanding and comprehension of knowledge of material for material, right? All of those things can be a common concern, but also as you develop your needs statement, if there are any lingering questions that you may have that can help you tease out more information, ask away, right? Our goal here is to paint a full picture of the needs as much as possible, right? And that's why we highly encourage you all to think about all of those different levels of data that you have access to or you can pull from, right? Someone also shared, oh, thank you, Carolyn. Encourage kids to proceed with studying and asking for help to proceed better understanding. Okay, so we're already thinking about the different activities that we can do in our program, which is awesome, but we're not there yet. And I love it. We often operate in a solution focused mindset, right? Let's get to the root cause of this problem, right? So important. But before we get into those activities, right, and our inputs and our outputs, we're going to continue to work on our needs statement, right? Because that will be needed for our next portion of the logic model. So what we're going to do now is work on our logic model tool. So we are actually going to do this through Concept Board. Let me know in the chat if you've used that before. It's like the new Jamboard or replacing the Jamboard. On this Concept Board, you will see a logic model. Now you all will be placed in a breakout room, anywhere between 1, 2, 3, or 4. There is a logic model for each breakout room. So 2 things you'll need to do. 1, after I review the instructions, I highly encourage you to identify 1 recorder for your breakout room and a reporter. The recorder will be doing the typing in the concept board. I just think it'll be easier for the amount of folks that we have today, right? So in your breakout room, you have some data, right? We're giving you a set of data to use as an example. Now, on the right side of your concept board, you'll see an NTech handout. Each breakout room will have its own set of data, right? You are going to take the data from there and you are going to go to your assigned logic model. So those logic models are also labeled according to your breakout room. Using the data from the right-hand side of the screen, you are going to drop each data into its respective level, right? So we have community, school, and student data available for you in that example. From there, you're going to work together to come up with a needs statement, right? So we have an example, right? That very top, very first logic model there is your example. So here we have our community level data where it says 67% of adults in the county have a high school diploma. And then we were able to take that and turn it into a needs statement. Okay, so again, there's a lot of, typing, and of course with the concept board, there's different pieces to it. I highly recommend that you identify a recorder for your group so that they can go in there and record your group's discussion around identifying the different levels of data and putting together a need statement. Now, if you forget what we're doing here on the left side of the concept board, you will find instructions for the activity. So right now we are working on our needs statement activity. Again, you are reviewing the data that we've provided you. You are going to work together to pull out the different levels of data. And what you can do is, you can identify one and create a needs statement, which will you'll record it in the needs statement column of the first section. All right, does that make sense to everyone? Any questions? You want to drop it in the chat for me before we open up the breakout rooms? All right, so again, you are recording your need statement. You have your data set. You can find that on the right side of your screen. Some of you will get to a point where you'll begin to think about your outcome, right? That will be the next thing that we'll talk about and discuss, okay? So again, we're going to do this together using the example data that we have all provided you. All right. If there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakout room. You will have 12 minutes to come up with your need statement with your group.
North Carolina DPI team, NTAC team, department folks. I did not assign any of you to a breakout room so that you can move around if you'd like to. But if you would like me to send you to a breakout room, you can just let me know in the chat.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you all went to town on these logic models. Love it. So what we're going to do now is I definitely want to hear from our reporters from the group around what levels of data were you able to pull over into your logic model and your group's needs statement. Okay, so again, we're really looking at that section where it's labeled number 1, needs, right? Anyone willing to unmute and report out for your room?
I will. I was in breakout group 4 and I didn't get all of the information put on there, but basically in the community, 67% have a high school diploma, 13% have a college degree. And the school level, 40% met math standards, but the majority can't solve problems with fractions. And then for the students at the elementary level, they've had 10 or more absences. And it went on to say that at least, let me see, the majority of the students, 23% of the students have had 3 or more disciplinary referrals, and 41% of the students have been dismissed, have been checked out early at least 3 times in a year, which adds up to a lot of class time. And that's about as far as we got.
Oh, that's good. I feel like you all were, oh, I lost my space. All right. I think I forgot to mention this, the data that was shared at the top of that handout on the side. So I think you all already picked that up too, right? So you have your very specific information or notes for data for your breakout room. And then at the top, you have the national census data, state assessment results, and student behavior reports. So you already picked up on that. It's awesome. Now, what would have been a needs statement given what you know about the example data that we were able to provide? What were you all thinking there?
Well, I know in my own county, you have to educate the community. So the community needs to be educated on the importance of either college or community college, how that they will help them. And I know in my community, because we're very rural, the community college thing is a big deal because that's like guaranteed job skills, because that's usually what's important in communities like that. And then at the school base, they need to analyze their data. They need to see exactly what part of the fraction issue, where it is it, do they not understand fractions? Do they not understand the procedures? And then the absence, you got to track it. You've got to make sure the community knows the importance of it. You got to share that in your after school program, which, that's one of our workshops for parents. So there's a lot, and I know those aren't needs statements, but I talk more and quicker than I can type it in there.
No, that's all good. So you actually brought up a lot of great points that you can incorporate in your needs statement, right? So you talked about community, right? There is a need there in addressing that gap, right? We know that our community need access or at least experiences where they can practice or learn about those skills that they'll need for any job or career readiness exposure, right? So it's not just our youth, it's our families. And we mentioned this before too, right? We definitely want our family voice to carry over for your program. I'm sure you're already thinking about including family in your program team. So you'll be able to get more information that you need to kind of flesh out your needs statement. So it looks like, oh, Hillary, are you helping? Is that you? So thank you, Hillary.
Yes, I'm trying to capture all the thoughts. So yes.
Awesome. So even if you just have one need statement in mind, we can work with that, right? Because our next step is to look over at the outcomes column. So you'll take your needs statement from that first section and you'll just copy and paste it into the needs column of your outcomes, right? Now, we talked about, actually, not even talked, I took a look at a lot of your logic models, and a lot of you are already throwing in a place to start with your outcome, right? So again, your outcomes should be focused on what you would want your students and or families to accomplish this summer, right? After participating in your program, right? So each of your outcomes should be tied to that need. And so that's why you are copying and pasting the need statements from the needs section over to the needs statement column in the outcome section. That will be the next activity we'll do, right? Now, I do want you all to keep in mind. Now, I see, like I mentioned before, a lot of you have already started listing your outcome, but because we're in a place where we really want to intentionally design our summer program, let's think about how can we flesh out our outcomes in a way that will allow us to, one, plan the right activities that we need to have in our programs, but also how can we word it in a way where we can use it to measure any success or areas for improvement, right? Because we're using a logic model to help support that continuous improvement process. So let's show you an example really quick, right? Because a lot of you are already kind of moving into this place. I see a lot of you are still working on it. Awesome. I'm happy. It looks like you all are fully engaged in putting together a logic model, right? Awesome. So let's say we have this need statement, right? Students need to develop reading comprehension skills to identify the main idea in a nonfiction text. So we're pulling that same example from earlier and we're bringing it here, right? So boom, we have our need statement. Now, like I mentioned before, your outcome is what we want our students or families to accomplish while they're in your program, or your summer programming. So here is an example of an outcome, right? When we think about our outcome, we want to think about our needs no longer existing, right? Here's our outcome. 80% of students will demonstrate grade level reading comprehension of nonfiction texts as measured by pre and post program assessments. What do you all notice about this outcome?
There's a measurement.
Yes, yes. We're measuring our success, right? Or progress, right? Through the pre and post program assessments. Anything else? Oh, yes, it's measurable, it's specific. Right? There's data involved to measure success, right? We want our outcome to be smart. Because again, we're focused on that strong evidence-based program design. Love it, kiss your brain. So what we'll do is, and what you can do now, I think, is think about what are the desirable outcomes, again, not just for our students. Breakout room 4, you brought this up, right? Your community needs, right? Right? Think about your program team. Hopefully you have a representative from your community and your family to think about what would you like from your team to learn more about what you can implement for your family engagement pieces, right? It's really important that not only are we able to identify any needs on our own through our data collection, but also how are our families viewing these needs, right? We need to talk with our families. Some of you have already started this process. You're planning focus groups. But as we pull in our families, we really need to get their perspective on any barriers youth may have to participating in your summer program or any strengths, right? So if you have any family, again, on your program planning team, that's awesome. If they are already a part of your plan when it comes to collecting data, great. right? Because all of this is going to tie in to your outcomes, which will eventually inform the middle section of your logic model, the inputs and outputs, right? Again, some of you have already started this, awesome. But we really want to take our time to make sure we're being intentional around how we are going to design our summer program. And in this case, it's really important that we bring our families in, right? They will also be able to let us know how we can communicate these needs so that they feel a part of the work, right? We want to let them know that we hear them and this is how we can support them and vice versa, right? They're also on our program team, so they are already committed to supporting the work of your summer program. All right. So again, make sure your outcomes are also family centered. All right, so that brings us to our outcomes activity. And again, we want our outcomes to be measurable, specific. What's the other one? Smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, or relevant, right? In this case, right? A lot of you are already thinking about the data that you have access to for your community and your program. So we'll go back to our logic model on our concept board. Some of you've already started this. If you've started entering your outcomes, please make sure it is a SMART outcome. And again, in that section, what you are doing is copying and pasting your need statement from the first activity into the needs statement column in the outcomes section. And then as a group, you're going to create or develop, right? Start an outcome that is SMART, right? So those of you who've already got something in place, go back in there, make the necessary edits so that is a SMART outcome. Because again, our logic model will definitely fuel the intentional design of our program. We want it to be evidence-based. So we need some form of measurement so that we know that we are successful, but also we will be able to identify any gaps in how we are planning for our activities. Okay, so again, the instructions for this activity, you can find it on the left-hand side. Because we're focused on the outcomes activity, you'll look at the instructions that says instructions for outcomes activity. Okay, so again, you're just bringing over your need statement and you're working on your outcomes. All right, so what we're about to do is open back up the breakout rooms. If you're having any trouble, Hillary's going to help us.
I'm just going to say before I open the breakout rooms, group 1, group 3, check what you put in your outcomes section already, because it doesn't exactly align with what Shanika said. So fix that first before you keep going. Okay. Here you go.
Oh, and you have 12 minutes. 12 minutes.
Well, thank you for all of your good work. There's a lot of brain power going into this. Do we have any breakout rooms who are willing to share a little bit about what you did, what you were thinking, the process you went through?
I guess I'll go since there's no one speaking up, nothing worse than silence, right? So we took what we had, we finished the need statements, and then we divided and conquered, and we put together, we looked at what the need was, and then we put together our statements, and we tried to include a measurable goal, but then we got distracted, of course, because when you start doing measurable goals, like it was pointed out, that sometimes we have activities, so we kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. But we decided that for our community, we need to bring different community members together, and at least 2 times a quarter, and do some job sharing, have like kids come and shadow their parents, but that of course will be an activity. But just to let the community, because sometimes adults don't even know what's available. And then we said for the schools, 70% of students will need be able to solve grade level fraction problems, because 40% passed the test, but the majority could not do fraction problems. So we did that. And then attendance, we talked about educating the parents on the importance of consistency. And then we said that attendance will improve to 50% with an increase of 20% parent attendance at meetings and things like that. And so we have lots of different activities built into that.
That's great. It was very helpful. Shanika, you want to talk a little bit about what was going on in your group, or nominate someone from your group?
I can talk for my group. Hillary, I don't know about you all, but definitely had some trouble typing in these boxes at the same time. So, our group, and I was in breakout room 1, we had a ton of ideas around activities to support not just our youth, right, but our families. So we spent some time really looking at that family section, right? So our needs statement was many of our families need additional support to help them further their education. So we were talking about, well, what does that support look like? Is it really getting the help that they need to enroll in additional courses? Or is it support in ensuring that they actually complete their degree? So we started with enrollment. So 70% of participating families will report successful enrollment in a local community college. This is where it gets a little wonky, as measured through data collected during enrollment session focus groups. And that's where we stopped.
I think that's a wonderful place to stop. We know we will clean this up before we meet up again so that it looks a little bit more beautiful as we jump into some of the other sections of the logic model. But I think that that's a great example of the types of outcomes that we're looking for, both that provide the programmatic parts of outcomes, but also what changes we're going to see in our space. I'm going to just look at one more quickly, because this group spent quite a bit of time talking about how they were going to measure the different aspects of what they were going to do. And so I'm going to pick on the school outcome, but they talked about it in a couple of different areas. So by the end of the school year, the percentage of students identified as chronically absent, which is defined as 10 or more absences in this case, will decrease from 17% to 12% as measured by official school attendance records. And so they're looking to see that change from the current status or the previous year status to the future year status. And I know that both breakout rooms 3 and 4 talked a little bit about using that year over year improvement as a mechanism to look at outcomes, which can be a really effective strategy around that. So once you have spent some time and collected all the needs information you have, and your folks are well on your way as you're planning surveys and focus groups and those types of things, and you collect all your data and you write your needs statements, and then you copy them over and you write your outcomes. The next thing you do is not the middle of the logic model. It's actually the top. So we're going to look next today at the theory of action. So what is a theory of action? A theory of action is, and I'm going to pop it up for us, a theory of action is a statement about what you will do in your program and what you want the long-term positive outcomes to be for your students. This is a short statement. It's like 2 sentences is like max, that communicates what your program's all about. This is your mic drop moment that you can say to anybody you're talking to about your program, this is what we're doing. That you can say to any potential partner, any school day partner, that you can say to somebody who's thinking about coming and providing a service or donating something to you, that this is what we're all about. That not just you know it, but your staff know it, the other people in your organization know it. It is really this unified mission that you can clearly communicate to stakeholders what your program is all about. It will help you bring in those relevant stakeholders as you customize what you're doing, as you customize your program to align with their priorities. You can use your theory of action to communicate to families how their kids, how their students will benefit from the program that you're offering. You're going to use it with your school day administrators, right? Your principal, your superintendent, to show how your summer program aligns with what your school needs. And you're going to use it to those partners to communicate what they're trying to achieve and how they can help. Creating a theory of action, oh boy, is a collaborative process. It's a good time to come together with your other stakeholders and do it as early as possible. You want to make sure that you are on the same page about what you are going to achieve in the coming summer. And you want to do it now. You want to do it in January so that the rest of the spring you can spend headed towards the same thing, because it's really hard when you've spent all this time planning and prepping and getting ready for something, and then somebody comes in and they're like, wait, I thought you were doing this other thing. This theory of action prevents that. It guides your work, and it prioritizes student and community needs. That's why we've spent so much time looking at data, talking about needs statements, talking about outcomes we want. Because with that information in hand, we are prepared to focus our limited summer resources where they're going to have the strongest impact for students and families. And so as you saw on the logic model at the top, there is a space to capture that information and to write that statement. This is the statement that guides your work. And to develop it, you need to understand your data, your needs, and your desired outcomes. So what's the format of a theory of action? A theory of action is structured as an if-then statement, right? If we implement our summer program properly, then we hope to achieve long-term positive impact on our students. We're not just thinking about the results of the summer, right? We're not thinking about something that you can measure in August. When we think about your theory of action, we want to focus on the big picture, how we're changing children's lives, right? This is that moment of energy, of hope, of inspiration. So let's think a little bit about what we've been talking about for our example so far today. So we know, as far as a need, is that students need to develop reading comprehension skills to identify the main idea in a nonfiction text. That's the need statement that Shanika has helped us look at a couple of times today. And one of the measurable outcomes we've indicated that we want to come out of that, addressing that need, is 80% of students will demonstrate grade level reading comprehension of nonfiction text as measured by pre and post assessments. With that information in mind, what's the if we then statement that could be a theory of action? So I'm going to give you a few minutes. Write me something in the chat. What could be the theory of action for this particular example? The thing that says, if we do this, then youth will experience this learning that we want them to get. Give it a try. 1 sentence, 2 sentences max. I know some of the folks on this call are the inspirers. This is your moment to create your inspiring statement. Yep, put it in the chat. Give us one in the chat. What's your 1 to 2 sentence theory of action that would work for this example? Or if you have one for your own program already, we're happy to look at those. Like, share them with us. So Annette says, if we offer more support with small group work, we will achieve success. That's a great way to start. And I think I'd even clarify what we mean by success, right? We want them to know that our students will have on grade level reading comprehension, right? That's a measure of success that everybody can talk about, that people know what it means, even if they don't know exactly what it means. Or we have all students will be able to use reading strategies to be able to comprehend and apply critical thinking skills to all the passages they're given. There you go. Absolutely. Are you ready to see our example? Here comes our example. Oh, one more, couple more. Provide small group instruction to all students and identify students at risk and provide intervention. So that's what you're going to do. What's going to be that long-term impact? If we do that, Angel, then what? So I'm getting the if we do parts from some of you, and that's okay. Don't forget the impact part, right? So if we create small groups based on instruction, I'm going to combine two of these together, right? If we get small groups, create small groups using assessment data, then, oh, Jessica, you just deleted your message. I was going to use that as the then to the previous statement. There we go. Then
I had to edit it. Sorry, I had a typo.
That's okay. I was going to use it as the then for the previous one. So if, I'm going to try it one more time. If we create small groups using assessment data, then students will demonstrate growth on district or school benchmark reading assessments aligned with comprehension status, right? So it's the if then, right? It's that if then model. You're going to be looking for the if we then, this long-term impact for our students is in the theory of action. So let's look at the example that our team wrote. So we wrote, if we create an engaging summer program that provides a safe and supportive environment, it provides wraparound services and evidence-based literacy activities, then participating youth will demonstrate improved reading comprehension, increased engagement in literacy activities, and self-reported interest in reading, right? It's like, here, we can do this. And it's going to take all these things that we've been thinking about to drive this home. And you can see in this theory of action that they're thinking not just about student level data, right? They're thinking about school level data, community level data, student voice data, right? The student voices, it needs to be interesting. The wraparound services, think about community data that the families may need. It thinks about the evidence-based literacy activities for the school level data. It incorporates all of the data, all of the pieces into this single statement, right? So Tara says, if students receive engaging instruction and regular practice, then they will improve their ability to understand reading text. Absolutely. And think what else, right? What else needs to happen to draw that theory of action out? One more. If students increase reading comprehension, then they may have a greater appreciation of reading with understanding. Absolutely. So we're going to go back to our concept board one more time. And this is your space to create a theory of action, right? We're going to move you into the breakout rooms. I am going to just drop the link in the chat one more time in case you closed out. And when you go into your breakout room, I want you to discuss a theory of action for the summer for your whole program, not just one piece of what you're doing. And then we are going to get you to take a minute and look at some of the other logic models and see if you can leave a compliment, a question, or a recommendation on a sticky note. For those of you who haven't checked out a sticky note yet, the sticky notes are here on your screen and you can just grab one and click it wherever you want to start typing. So grab some sticky notes. You don't each have to do a sticky note. Whoever your writer is can write a sticky note, but I'm going to send you to your breakout sessions first start with the theory of action, then review one of the other groups' logic models and provide some feedback on sticky notes. Here we go. For any of you who got kicked out, if you just tell me what group you were in originally, I'll send you back to the same group.
This is Tyrone Brunson. I'm in room 4.
In room 4, you're headed there now.
All right, thank you.
LaTanya, you're headed there. So we are going to just take a moment and look at a couple of the theories of action. And then I want to highlight some of the things that you all gave as compliments, because you all have done a lot of work today and we want to make sure that we lift those up. So do I have any groups that are willing to share their theory of action?
Hey, I'll read for breakout room 4.
Okay.
If we intentionally collaborate with families, community partners, and staff to design and implement our summer program, then students will experience meaningful academic growth. If we use student data and family feedback to continuously reflect and improve, then our program will meet the needs of students and families, building community around student learning and elevating awareness and opportunities for families.
Tyrone, I listened to your group working on this example. I think this is a fabulous example of what it means to give that big picture message. And if I walked into your program, if a potential donor walked into the program and you talked about this, this is the thing that hooks people and draws them in. This is the type of thing. And I think there's some other good examples of this in the room, right? If you look at breakout room 3, they have said if we deliver structured after school programming that targets students experiencing anxiety and chronic absenteeism through evidence-based academic support, social emotional learning, and family engagement, then students will demonstrate measurable improvements in attendance and coping skills and social emotional competencies, which will lead, this is where they got that long-term mindset on, to reduce chronic absenteeism, stronger academic engagement, and improved long-term educational and wellness outcomes. It's another one. People will get on board with you in that. Breakout room 2 also has one that really helps think about what it looks like to do this in the summer in a really practical way. So if we provide encouragement, targeted tutoring, and instructional support to students and families, we'll see an increase in math skills and scores. They're very much leaned into math. And some of your programs have that program focus that you're supposed to be working towards. Students will also master math before entering grade 5, along with confidence and measurable growth in math. I know that group was in math skills may have still been working on that last sentence, but that idea of mastering those skills and entering 5th grade with confidence around math is huge. Math confidence is an important part of what helps young people be successful in school. And so I will say, based on what we've seen here today, that you all are ready to go and do this work for yourselves. You may still have questions, you may still have things that you need to work through, but creating a logic model isn't something that happens instantaneously. It's not something that will be beautiful in one moment, but instead is a place where we connect our needs to our outcomes, where we design a theory of action that describes our program. And really, that's our task for you as you leave and before you come back again, or as you work over the next couple of months, when to go back and get started. One, finish your needs statements or keep working on your needs statements, right? Think about your outcomes and your theory of action for summer 2026, right? You saw what it looks like to kind of do the work of working that in your model. Bring your program team together and do the same thing with them, right? Don't forget, we have created a group on the Knowledge Network that you can leave your needs statements, that you can leave your outcomes, that you can leave your theory of action, and you can get input from your peers, from us. So if you're struggling, if you're stuck, that's a great place to go. And so just as a reminder, I'm going to pop this back up. If you are on the NTAC website and you're logged into your account, you should be able to access the professional learning portal and the Knowledge Network. And okay, well, maybe not right this second. Well, if you could access the Knowledge Network, because I opened it earlier, you can see this conversation from today's session. It's a great spot to leave those theories of action, to leave any questions, leave those things you're struggling with, because we want to support you and we remain available to support you in that work. The other thing that we recommend you do before you go into this next session is complete the next section of the Summer Readiness Assessment Tool. So if you're on the NTAC website and you access the professional learning portal under the learning management system, you would be able to see this course. It is one of the courses that's available to you. And so if you view all and scroll down to the second page, you can see the Summer Readiness Assessment Tool. It's not necessarily a course like you typically think of it, but this is a tool to make sure your logic model is in good shape, you have the information you need, and you're ready for the next part of the work that we're going to do. Okay. So please engage in those resources, those tools. They're there to help you. We want to see you access and use the NTAC website. Also, for those of you, because I know a lot of you are thinking about literacy, there are a lot of new resources coming on the NTAC website connected to and related to literacy. We have all kinds of courses, including the Summer Readiness Assessment Tool, but there's also courses around embedding academics into enrichment activities. And so if you're thinking about that for the summer and you know you need to go a little deeper there, dive in. Or perhaps you're thinking about learning recovery strategies for students who are behind academically and need that additional support. We want to encourage you to do that work. We also want to encourage you to use the Knowledge Network. It's a resource that's there for you. It's a place to connect, to build collaboratively. We've created this group for your state so that you can bounce ideas off of one another, bounce ideas off of our team, even off your state leaders, because they have access to that too. If you're looking for just an informal place to ask questions, although I know your program administrators are very active and very communicative with you in other ways. And then join that group. You will see that summer implementation model on the post. So if you're looking for it and you're like, I don't know what I'm looking for, keep your eye open for that sign. We've now seen it every time we've been together and met. So hopefully it's a familiar symbol to you as we have that conversation. And then the last thing I'm going to ask before I pass it back to your team is, please complete today's feedback form. Reach out to us with questions, visit the website, follow us, follow us to see what's upcoming by registering for our newsletter. But we want, most importantly, to get the feedback form. Let us know about your experience today, so that we can make adjustments for the future sessions. Make sure that you're getting what you need and support that would be helpful to you, so that when you go back and do this work with your teams, you're ready, you're equipped to do that work. So I'm happy to hang out for questions afterwards, but I'm going to pass it back to Kendall now to wrap up the session for today.
Thank you so much. And we're happy to hang out for questions too, if anyone needs to hang around and speak with a program administrator. Looking through the chat, just making sure we didn't miss anything. And as always, please complete the feedback form so we can better help you all in these professional development sessions and tailor it to your needs. So without further ado, we'll give 3 minutes back to everyone. Thank you so much, and we'll hang out. Have a great day.